to But Is It Feminist, the podcast that supports women's rights and women's wrongs. I am your host, Amanda Hernandez, sociologist by training, hater by nature. I cannot even begin to describe how excited, how scared, how thrilled I am to have this conversation today. I have invested many hours of rotting on my couch and taking pages of notes in my notebook to have this very important conversation about season 2 of The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives with my dear friend and collaborator, Dr. Tess Starman. Tess earned her PhD at Howard University and will be starting as an assistant professor of sociology at Simpson College this fall. Over the few years we've known each other, we've bonded over our research on religion, race, and gender, but also other scholastic endeavors such as book talk reads and sending each other reels and TikToks literally all day long. I cannot open my Instagram without seeing 4 notifications from the group Smut Scholars and knowing they are reels from Tess. Tess, thank you for being here today and having this timely conversation. I would love it if you could introduce yourself.
I would be happy to, and I do want to apologize in advance for the pitter-patter of my dog that I'm sure you hear in the background right now. So he loves to make himself known.
We love George.
I am so honored to be here, to have been invited into this crucial conversation. Hi everybody, I'm Tess. Tess is my full name, nothing extra, nothing special further about it. As Amanda mentioned, important things to know about me. I have an emotional support Kindle and read way too many books in a year, most of which do not contribute to the elasticity of my brain. I have a dog, as I mentioned, George, who is the love of my life. And then in my free time, read, hang out with my dog, watch reality TV show because it makes me feel better about my own life because I see how shitty other people's lives are.
That's so
that's
real.
about me in a nutshell.
Before I officially start, I have a surprise for you.
Okay.
I got a poppy.
Shut up.
And I thought I could do ASMR.
Oh, totally should. You totally should. Okay. Hold on, wait.
Okay, it's not bad, unfortunately. They got me.
Not they got you. Oh my gosh. I mean, the branding was something else.
Yeah. Okay. Before we jump into what I'm sure are piles of notes between the two of us about MomTok, I want you to tell me a little bit about your feminist identity. Like, where did you learn about feminism? What does feminism mean to you? When did you become feminist?
Yeah. I think it's such a hard question. I was trying to remember like my first memory of it, which makes me, and I couldn't place anything, which makes me feel like a lot of the definitions of it, the ideals behind it have been a part of me for a very long time. So I think I don't know when exactly I heard first the term, but I think it's always been a little bit a part of who I am. So I think I might have come out of the womb a little bit of a feminist. But I think a lot of that has to do, like, I grew up in like a flipped traditional gender norms household where my dad was the classroom parent and my mom worked. And so I think that was always like, I always had a little bit of a different gender norm makeup than a traditional household necessarily. So I'm sure I was introduced to the actual like term and the definition of the term in high school or college. But when I think about like my feminist identity and what it means to me, I think the most formative aspect of the identity was the learning and recognition that feminism can't be feminism without being intersectional feminism. And that's the core of the definition to me, that coming to a point of gender equity across all genders, all expressions can't happen if we aren't also challenging capitalism, if we aren't also challenging systemic racism and white supremacy, if we aren't challenging cis heteronormativity and boundaries around marriage and sexuality and all of these things. So I think for me, that's, I would describe myself as in the simplest of terms, as an intersectional feminist.
Yeah. But we are gathered here today to talk about The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. And before I start, I just have to ask, are you ready to take accountability, Tess?
I don't know if I'm ready to be held accountable for my actions.
For real, when I was like getting ready, I asked my husband, Anthony, I said, should I put on my Whitney headband? Because
Oh my gosh,
I have
please.
one. I've had it before I saw this show, but I was like, how funny. But I already had the poppy and I felt like it would be a bridge too far if I showed
Too
up with
much.
the headband and the poppy.
Too much. It's fabulous.
Okay, so where do we even begin? I feel like there's so much
Hmm.
happening in this season. I felt like I literally wrote in my notes at one point of like, take a shot every time you hear Chippendales. There's there are so many tangents. But I guess as the name of the podcast suggests, we are here to try and deliver a verdict on if this show could be interpreted as feminist in any way. And literally every confessional interview with the girls has each person invoking this like ideals of mom talk. This isn't what mom talk stands for, where mom talk is supposed to be women empowering women. Um, and so I just wonder if we can start here. Like, please weigh in on this.
Yeah, I think I wrote that through all of my notes. Like, where did this conceptualization and definition of mom talk come from? Because certainly that's not the genesis of mom talk. The genesis of mom talk is capitalism. It's to make money. It's to get brand deals. And I mean,
Uh-huh.
mom talk was not made for a quote unquote sisterhood. Like, I don't understand where this, like, I think trying to save face, I think like when we talk about money, when we talk about brand, like things like this that come up naturally with a group of women who are really in business with one another, like, I don't know if
Mm,
it feels icky or feels slimy to be talking about the money behind it, but like that's the definition of what mom talk is. Mom talk is a group of influencers trying to make money. So I'm not sure what the whole, like, it's all about sisterhood and empowering women and, building each other up. Like, I literally through my notes of reading this in preparation for this conversation was like, definition of mom talk, question mark,
can
conceptualization of mom talk,
can we
question
define
mark.
our terms?
I just like, yeah, like maybe that's the scientist in me where I'm just like, I I don't know what it is about the fact that we can't just say we're here to make money.
I think that's so interesting. Like, okay, because you had asked a question while you were talking of, do they think about and talk about mom talk in this way because they feel icky talking about the money? But that was such like not a huge story point, but it
Mhm,
came up a few times, especially with like Demi of like,
mhm,
oh, she wanted bigger brand deals and she didn't get
mhm.
it. And then there's like that whole conversation, I think, in one of the last episodes where they're all at Jesse's house
Yeah.
and Jesse is trying to mediate a conversation between Taylor and Demi and being like, we just
Mhm.
work together. Can y'all work together?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the closest they got to broaching of like, we're in business together.
Yeah, and even like that, like, okay, there was this rumor like Demi was trying to get Jessie kicked out of the show if that meant she'd make more money because she was quote unquote the star, which meant somehow her name, her brand, her image meant more money. And
Hmm.
she wanted to capitalize on that. Like, inherent in almost all of the tensions of this season was money, but it was never really explicitly named.
Yeah, it was just who's the leader of Mom
Yeah.
Talk? Who's allowed in? Do we need to vote them back
The
in?
multiple votes, like, my goodness, like, do we really vote on friendship? If this is about empowering women, is empowering women about excluding women because they've had some sort of like a breach or they needed to step back, meaning
There,
step back from making money collectively? What are they stepping back from? They're stepping back from brand deals and stepping back from collaborative dances together. Like, let's think about what it means for this vote in, vote out, and like this litmus test for what it means to be in. Well, what it means to be in is opening opportunities to make money.
absolutely. The whole time, one of the things that came up while I was writing a lot was friends don't talk about friends this way. Sad face.
Ooh,
Like
yeah.
I mean everybody has tension with their friends at some point. Like you have a disagreement or a falling out.
Yeah.
But even people that I like actively dislike, I don't know that I would treat them that way.
Yeah. Let's talk about an example of this, because this is a huge thing for me. So one of the things that was shocking was the evolution of Jen
Yep. I
and
knew
Zach,
exactly where you were
right?
going. Yep.
So I'm thinking about the fact that there was this whole like this Jesse and Demi who were meeting up with Zach, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they were going to confront Zach about how he responded to Chippendales last season, right? And his like whole med school, not med school. We're confused about that. Jen moving to New York, but then moving back immediately to Utah, right? So there was this whole like Jesse and Demi are meeting up with Zach. And even the language, like when they're going to meet up with him, I wrote down, they said girl power and quote, power to the pussy
Uh-huh.
is
Uh-huh.
they said multiple times. And then immediately when Zach starts to talk, they turn on her.
Mm-hmm.
Like they say, quote, things aren't adding up. They make her untrustworthy. And then they use this quote of, we need to, quote, hold Jen accountable.
Yep.
And this whole scenario was wild to me. Like, yeah.
And yeah. So I clocked all that too. And I felt really sad for Jen because she's obviously going through something really hard and devastating. Like her reaction to the pregnancy test. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to speculate too much because I know these are like real people
Yeah.
with real lives and shit. But that's
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
whatever she's actually going through in that moment. I was like, she feels trapped. She's
Yeah.
in this relationship where she has described him as narcissistic. She has these group of people who say they're her friends and are there to support her and immediately fold and turn on her when he's like, well, no, that's not the way that went down. And I'm glad that she stopped filming. I was really
Yeah.
glad to see that. I don't know if I would describe anything about this show as tasteful, but
Mhm.
when there was like that moment where it's like, we decided that we shouldn't be shooting with Jen.
Yeah.
I was like, that is the smartest thing that anybody on
Yeah.
this show has done. Like, just
Yep.
stop.
Absolutely. I think that the way that she was under attack by the girls in the group, like there's no other way to describe it. Like they called her a pathological liar. They're flipping on her and like almost siding with Zach at one point. One of them
Hmm.
said that it has nothing to do with gender,
Mm,
which seemed really wild. And all of this like fighting, like I wrote in my notes, like, is this what women supporting women looks like? Because it certainly doesn't feel like it. Like the fact
yeah.
that that was always like, this isn't what MomTok is supposed to be about. And yeah, I am just, I haven't actually seen any evidence that demonstrates what they say MomTok is supposed to be about, right? This women supporting
Yeah.
women, this empowering women, all the small snippets of something that seems a little pushing the boundaries, seems commodified, seems
I feel like
uh
that is such a natural outcome of the moment we're in, though. Like this
yeah,
commodified girl boss feminism for years. Like we've been fed Dove commercials, right? Like throw like a girl, nasty woman.
mhm,
This is what a feminist looks like. You can buy all the merch. And I feel
yeah,
like so many people have uncritically absorbed that idea that that is for some people
yeah,
what empowering women looks like is making money together. And
yeah,
so not being able to disentangle like is this feminism? Are we smashing the
mhm,
patriarchy?
yeah,
No.
yeah,
So another storyline of the season that I think speaks to the different themes and ideas that feminists have been thinking about since forever is things like sexual pleasure, sexual power, sexual abuse. Just, there's lots of sex in the show. Um,
mhm,
and I think for me, the thing that I like really zero in on, and I still can't quite make sense of it. So maybe you can help me of like, they're talking about sexual empowerment and women's empowerment, but they're really like very prudish. Anthony watched all of them with me, of course. And I was like, it's so funny to me that everyone on this show cannot grasp the simple reality that people interpret different things differently. So, like for Taylor, making out and having sex in the same room with their partners constituted swinging. But for Miranda, it didn't. And in my head, I'm like, girls, that's not even swinging. Like, I'm like, you're not
Yeah.
even nasty freaks.
Yeah.
And so, like, I
But
recognize.
apparently they are, quote, a little freaky, ... in marriage, was a quote from one of them.
Okay. And so, like, I recognize that for people who grew up in more conservative, like, especially LDS spaces, like, this would, like, having sex with your partner in the same room where another heterosexual couple are having sex, like, that would be radical. That's edgy. But from the outside looking in, I view that engagement of, like, reclaiming their sexuality as superficial. And going back to, like, the commodification stuff, I think about season 1 where Whitney's having that conversation with her mom and her sister about the brand deal with the vibrators. And, like, of course, I follow them all on social media, of course. And I've
Of
been
course.
watching, like, they're doing their European tour right now, and I consume all of Whitney's content. And
Mhm.
yesterday, she had a several, like, picture post on her Instagram of her with the vibrators again. And
Mhm.
she's like, "People ask me how I deal with my stress, orgasms." And it's just like her smiling with the vibrator by her face.
Okay.
Um, and so, and again, this just comes back to what you were already saying of, like, they aren't reclaiming their sexuality. They're
Mhm.
just commodifying it. And to be clear, I think people commodify their sexuality all the time. I don't see anything wrong with that. I believe sex work is work. But,
Mhm.
like, why do I feel a certain way about them commodifying their sexuality?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's hard because like, the vast majority of viewers of this content, I think, don't understand the relative position where they're coming from, and that's key. And I think both you and I, as people who, like, study religion, recognize that, like, this does seem radical. So,
Mhm.
relatively speaking to what they're comparing their actions to, which is a conservative, fundamental religious structure that is very purity culture based, this does feel like women's empowerment. This does feel radical. To say
Mm.
the term orgasm, to hold up a vibrator, to, all of these things, right? And even that conversation in season 1 with Whitney and her family, of them being like, do you really want to be known for that? Like,
Mm.
that's a little bit of, like, the tone of, and that's even a more open and progressive tone relative to most LDS spaces, I think. And so, so I think relative, like, I think they fundamentally believe that they're empowering women, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's the key thing here, right? Are they actually? No, they aren't, right? This isn't revolutionary. This isn't, for someone in LDS that's watching this, perhaps, right? They might start to think differently about their sexuality or about their gender or about, any sort of a number of things, but fundamentally they aren't, right? And I think the key thing that I wanted to bring up that was wild to me in this season around sexuality was about Layla. And
Mm.
this Layla never having an orgasm, having this very direct conversation on camera about how she's never had an orgasm. Her boyfriend of 3 months being on camera, and
Mm,
the
mhm.
question that she asked him of, do you feel pressure to give me an orgasm? And then the consequential party of breaking the taboo. And this idea of just conversations around sex and around female pleasure being taboo is the relative space where they're coming from. And there are certainly other spaces where these conversations are still taboo, right? But I think it was at the party, it was the branding of Poppy. It was the brand deals around vibrators that were talked about. It was the educator that came in. It was the filming
Mm.
of all of that, the pairing off and having them use different devices on each other to see what their physical and sexual response was like, and filming that all for content.
Yeah.
That was quite, I don't want to say the word shocking, but it was the way that it was framed that was quite, that felt very commodified to me. And again, like, you're right, our sexuality is commodified in this state of capitalism, but it felt disingenuous for true exploration of sexuality. And maybe
Mm.
that's the part where it feels decoupled like talking about women's empowerment, talking about sexuality, trying to quote unquote break the taboo and but it was like, we're not trying to break the taboo. We're having a party that we can record, that we can get a brand deal for, that we can make funny mocktails for, right? Like all of these things that just felt very disingenuous to true sexual exploration in my mind. And if that's what someone's seen as like a picture of this is what sexual enlightenment and exploration means, like, oh, I feel like it falls woefully short.
Yeah. I have so many thoughts. A little bit ago, you had mentioned how a lot of this is so relative. Like for these women in their specific religious context, this is radical. This is pushing limits.
Yeah.
And how maybe someone who comes from a similarly religious background, maybe not even like LDS, but just like a similar background, might watch this and go, oh, I can talk about sex, or I can have pleasure too. I wonder if religion not really showing up at all this season affects that, because I feel like, at least from my recollection, the only times they really talked about religion was a lot of them saying that they're not really going to church anymore, or that they're disengaging from those spaces.
Yeah. And a few that very explicitly said, I'm a former, which was kind of the divide.
That's right. Yeah.
Last season, there was the divide between like the saints and the sinners is how they conceptualized it. The sinners being people who were former or ex. Like at one point, Jesse very specifically said, I'm an ex-Mormon. And so I feel like there was, but even people who were historically, I would say on camera, seemed the most adherent to Mormonism, like Zach and Jen, for example. And they specifically multiple times this season said they're not going to temple, to service. Whitney was very, very rarely brought up. Garments were such a huge conversation, and the relationship between that and sexuality is a whole other conversation. But that was brought up so much last season, and I don't think we had any conversations around the amount of trips they went on. And for us not to see a garment seemed very, very odd. So I think there was a lot of, you're right. There was, and I didn't even pinpoint that as I was watching. Was such a shift away from kind of that conversation, and also that dichotomy that they had created last season of saints versus sinners, those that are still adhering to the religion versus those that aren't.
Yeah, the only time it really came up this season was the party with Baby Mama, Macy's brand, and Jay-Z Extensions, Jesse's salon. And that was like, they all came in their little cute costumes. They looked adorable. And like, I'm going to go on an aside real quick. One of my first notes that I wrote down too was, unfortunately, everyone's hot. Like, right? I'm so sorry, but they're all gorgeous.
It's so annoying.
Damn it. So they had like their saints and sinners party, and they have a fight, but it's about like, Demi's not really your friend. She said, don't even go to your hair salon, which that was shady. Very shady.
I think there's a couple other pieces around sexuality that I kind of want to pull threads on. And one of them is about fertility. And this fertility thing that came up multiple times.
I have pronatalism written so many times in my notes.
So many times. There's this like, being a mom is the ultimate. Procreation is the requirement. Go off.
I think this is Whitney, because she's retelling her birth story. And she says,
which
quote,
was filmed.
Oh my. I mean, they did have the little note that said like it was their home footage, but I'm like, that baby is popping out of her, like, give her a little space. But okay. She says, being a mom is one of the greatest callings a woman can have. She says, it is the greatest blessing. It is a miracle. And that being a mother helps distract you or pull you away from, quote, worldly things.
Yep. I wrote that exact same quote down, Amanda, because it was this, you're right, this pronatalism, which is like, this entire sentiment of there's something sacred, otherworldly, and therefore a pursuit that should be above all else, to procreate, to have babies, to, and there was such a juxtaposition of Whitney on another baby, of Jen, a surprise baby, an unwanted baby, and then we have two people that are dealing with infertility, and we see their journey. Then we have two more pregnancies at the end, right at the end of the season, and we have just an utterly wrecked Demi dealing with her infertility of multiple years. I mean, there was this idea of like in Scottsdale, like they had this is where they did the pregnancy roulette, or the pregnancy roulette was later, but they cheersed in Scottsdale. They cheersed, I wrote this down, to fertility, and cheers to fertility for all.
Okay, let me get your take on this, because it was Layla who like walks in with the pregnancy test and is like, we're gonna do pregnancy roulette. And immediately, of course, like production cuts to Demi's face.
Yeah.
And if I saw like, I can see a situation where you're just like, LOL, I'm having fun, shits and giggles. And then being like, oh, I fucked up. I really stepped in it. Like, I would never want to hurt my friend in that way. And then being like, oh, never mind. This is actually a bad idea.
Yeah.
But then, like, people clock it and they do it anyway. And then after Demi gets really upset, people are like, oh, like, is she really taking it that hard? Like, do you feel like Layla actually planned that and wanted to do it? Or do you think this is like a production, like, it would be really fun?
Yeah. I think it felt more of like a production pushing. Yeah. I think because, I mean, we knew at that point that, oh my gosh,
Macy was pregnant.
We did not know Michaela was pregnant. I feel like I mixed those two. We knew Macy was pregnant. We didn't know Michaela was pregnant. I feel like it was a manufactured for the sake of revealing these things, but also extending the storyline of Demi's infertility, which seems
so crappy.
Cruel. It seemed cruel, is what it seemed. And it was hard to watch. And like we knew Macy was pregnant, and I was like, I bet you anything, when I was watching with my friends, and I'm like, there's going to be 2 positive tests, and one of them is not going to be to me. And that's what happened. I mean, we knew of Macy. We knew there had to be some twist, so we assumed there was going to be somebody else. And so for that to happen, for it not to be Demi, for it to be Michaela, was...
This is what I was talking about earlier, of like, even though Demi's like obviously like the quote unquote villain of this season, she does so many shitty things to people she calls friends. She pulls out her white lady tears. There was a very funny TikTok I saw. This guy was like, white ladies can't use their white tears on other white ladies. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
So even though like she's basically being a shithead the whole season, again, I had that moment of like, I would never even treat someone I dislike this way.
Like that. Yeah. Yeah. I think that, and one of the things, like, I think on social media, everyone was talking about Demi as the villain, which, I mean, very clearly.
She got that edit. Yeah.
There's very clearly, she got that edit. Very clearly, there's some justification for it. But my least favorite person and my villain was Michaela. She was so mean consistently. Like, throughout, the way that she talked about people, the way that she went at Whitney, the way that she talked, whose house was she at where she got hot chocolate? And she talked about how it tasted like tree bark. Like, you go into a person's home and
I think that was Demi.
I think it made Demi's house. Yeah. And she's like, was just so disgusted by it.
Okay, Tess, I'm going to be so for real with you right now. I felt the same way, but then I got on social media and okay, this is mostly on TikTok. And a lot of people were like, we love to see a queen coming into her power. Like, it's really important for people who experience like sexual trauma to reclaim boundaries. And so I was like, oh, am I fucked up? Because I thought she was just like being really mean this season. It's like, so like even now I'm like, am I allowed to be like, Michaela, you can't act like that?
Okay, I totally get it, right? Like, she's married to a man who should be prosecuted, right? For, which that's a whole nother conversation that needs to be had, that age gap and when that happened. Certainly. And then, of course, her, self-disclosed history. Yes, I totally get that. And even in retrospect, then knowing she was pregnant, I was like, okay, did she feel like the hot chocolate tasted tree bark? Because I know pregnancy messes with your, like, did she actually, but it was the way that she treats the other women in her life. Like, that she is supposed to be building up as a part of empowering women. So I think it's right for people to say that, but I also don't think it's off for us to see the way that she's treating other people, and specifically the other women of MomTok, in a way that is like she just mean. I feel like there's no other way to describe it.
Yeah.
And the no openness, like everybody else being open to Whitney and her
Mm.
just being completely dismissive, when, as far as what I saw in the edits from both season 1 and season 2, like I don't know that there's a lot of justification for a unique, like,
Yeah.
fracturing of relationship with the two of them. And so if other people, like if Taylor is like, which there's the big like justification for an individual relationship fractures between Taylor and Whitney, right? If Taylor can be like, let's give her another chance,
Mm-hmm.
but Michaela is standoffish like that, it feels like I need more information about how she's processing what's happening. Like it almost felt like she was trying to position herself in the villain to set up to be the new Queen Bee. Like that's what it felt like. It
Interesting.
felt like a strategic move on her part.
I'm thinking about people I like really dislike for no super rational reason. And it makes me think of like, I don't know, maybe this is getting to be a dated reference, but like in The Office where Michael Scott really hates Toby for no reason.
Never.
He's like,
Yep.
shut up. Like, I just hate
I
you.
know, but that is like, I don't know, people that I just like hate for no reason, I just don't engage with.
Yeah.
Like it's usually people that aren't a regular part of my life, right? I mean, once you get to know people, you get to understand people a little bit. And I feel like that sort of like hatred dissipates maybe, or you come to more of an understanding.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, this like people that I have irrational negative feelings towards are people that are not a part of my regular life, right? Or like held at a distance. And so there isn't this like,
Yeah, you can talk your shit without being like,
it's not like I'm talking at them directly to them. I don't know. It felt,
yeah.
it didn't feel
Well,
right.
no one ever accused this show of being authentic.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Okay, there is one other thing. Well, there are a few other things, but one other thing for sure we need to talk about regarding sexuality in this season, which is Taylor's dad's slut shaming.
Oh my God.
The way that I had to walk out of the room,
that whole family,
that entire family, awful. But this like pregnant, weren't really together when he quote unquote cheated on her. But also this like, you have to stay together because you're a family, even though she quote will never trust him again. The fact that they're in this like barbecue, right?
they all gang
And
up on her.
they all gang up on Taylor, and they were like, nothing about, Dakota's treatment of her, nothing about like how they're toxic for one another. But her dad spins the entire conversation away from the focus on Dakota and says, what I want to know is why you were sleeping with him after 3 dates.
Yep. So that when that episode started and like Dakota's arriving there, the mom was telling Taylor how she had invited Dakota and didn't know if he was coming for sure or not. Dakota finally gets there. And I don't know exactly what the exchange between him and her stepdad is, but he says, "You better, pussy." And then they start like giggling. And I was like, oh, coming out swinging. And then they go to the backyard and like the misogynistic double standards from her stepdad, Dakota, her brother, the brother's girlfriend or wife, whoever it was, like took the baby and left. And her sister was quiet for a little bit, but the sister sort of stepped up and was like, no, y'all just need to break up. Y'all are bad for each other.
Yeah. Like the only voice of reason there. I mean, it just is this broader conversation around, the reinforcement of this sort of like womanhood is done by the reinforcement, or like the double-edged, the other side of the coin, I guess, of that is like the reinforcement of such toxic masculinity, and such patriarchal masculinity. I mean, I think about the fact that like Chase barely touched Demi, and the way Brett nearly punched him, to the fact that the cops were called on them.
And Jesse's husband, where he was,
when Jesse went up and
you better, what did he say?
Oh my God,
you better own up. And I was just like,
yeah.
I mean, it was nasty. Chase should not have done that, but it was.
No, but the reaction was 100% out of line. Like honestly, like I left, I'm like, this is totally foreplay for them. Like this is 100% foreplay.
The kinkiest thing on this show.
I know, right? Like, oh my gosh, it was absolutely wild.
Yeah, this show is aggressively heterosexual,
Yeah.
aggressively. Like from the Chippendales storyline to like anytime the dads get together, like the dad talk, they're doing like they're fishing or they're
Oh my
playing golf.
gosh.
Can't the boys just get together?
Mhm.
Like why do
Yeah.
if they're gonna talk about their feelings, they have to be doing some sort of manly recreational activity as
Yeah,
well.
to reinforce that they're men.
Yeah.
Yeah. The discussion, the display, the reinforcement, the maintenance of gender in this show is wild. It's really wild. The argument about, I'm just looking through my notes, argument about whose sourdough starter it was. It's just like trad wife. All I had was flags about about trad wife in the back of my head. Like, who the fuck cares about whose sourdough starter
I
it was?
laughed so hard. Nay, I cackled
Nay.
when they show up with the sourdough and they have when they both show up with the same exact thing on the sourdough.
Yep.
I was like, if you hate someone for no good reason and they show up with the same exact bread as you,
Yep.
through the roof.
Yes. Absolutely wild. And then so breaking the taboo, but we can't call it a better than sex cake.
Oh yeah, what did they say? A better than what cake?
Better than what cake?
And then there was the joke about the penis sprinkles.
Mhm.
People got heated about the bake-off.
Yep.
I was at book club last month, and someone had asked the question, what is the difference between the trad wives and MomTok? And everyone's like cross-talking, talking over each other. And my friend was like, no, let Amanda speak. This is what she researches. And I don't remember exactly what I said, but when I was done, they were like, oh, wow, yeah, you said that really good. And I was like, well, I hope so.
I hope so. I do this for a living.
But I basically said something to the effect of like, trad wives, like, yes, they're all using social media to elevate their platform to talk about certain things. But what trad wives are doing is they're tapping into gender traditionalism in a way that's like very explicit. They want to revert back to gender traditionalist patriarchal norms. Whereas MomTok is attempting, whether or not they're successful at it is up for debate, but they are attempting to break gender traditionalist norms.
Yeah.
It's like they're both creating content online to have jobs that enable them to be stay-at-home mothers, generate income in a way that is appropriately gender scripted.
Yeah.
But they're using like they're tapping into different ideologies. Trad wives are tapping into gender traditionalism, and MomTok is attempting to tap into girl boss feminism.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they're doing a successful job of being white feminists that are only commodifying themselves and their content. But yeah, that I said something to this effect. But what do you think?
Yeah. I think you're so right. I thought about it immediately as the direction. And that's exactly how you explained it. Like trad wives are specifically and intentionally moving in the direction of a traditional patriarchal structure, right? Like there's a desire for that. I also think a lot of trad wife content that I see, like first and foremost that comes to mind is like ballerina farms, is like so much of a desire for traditional, like this like traditional reclaiming, that they're distancing themselves from technology and innovation as well. Like there's almost like an anti-science, anti-development, anti-technology in a lot of ways. Whether or not that's actually true is a whole different thing, because we can talk about the $10,000 range in the background of ballerina farms, TikToks, but there's like this, there's like this desire that traditionalism, patriarchal norms, this sort of lifestyle, quote unquote, is also like a reclaiming of like a more of a homesteading, more of a back to nature, a rootedness. So it's also feels very anti-science, anti-technology, anti-medicine, anti-innovation, right? There's high association with anti-vaxxers, I feel like, in this space too, right? So I think that's a big thing, is like the direction of it, right? Whereas MomTok is like coming from a context that rewards that kind of traditionalism. So they're in their own way moving in the direction opposite of, in an opposite direction or out of that sort of gender traditionalism, structured household traditionalism, and trying to challenge it. So it feels like it's in a different direction. I don't feel like it's landing in a very, you're right, it's landing in this girl boss, which just reinforces gender scripts, gender norms. So I don't know that that's a whole other conversation. I feel like there's, yeah.
Do you think that's why Whitney like dropped that like a hot potato? Because remember, like at the end of season 1, she was like, her and her family were going to visit homesteaders and they were gonna like do that. And then it's just scrubbed.
Yeah.
Like it is not in season 2. And I'm like, Whitney, baby, that's not your calling. I've seen you. You are not a trad wife.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I feel like it's easy to slip into that because that's what's reinforced in society. It's reinforced in their context, especially too. And so I feel like it'd be really easy I feel like there's a lot of overlap in the Venn diagram of Treadwives and MomToks, but there's a lot of unique aspects to each. So I feel like it could easily be a slippery slope either direction.
Slippery slope. Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Why do you think this show is so popular? Like, why are we all so mesmerized? Why did I sit for hours on my couch? And like, my husband, a mere man, was like, he was there. He had to work on Saturday, which is my binge day. And he was like, you cannot watch this show without me. And I said, I wouldn't dare. So like, why was he as equally invested? Why do I get on TikTok and see, well, I know why I see it because I like it. And then the algorithm's like, oh, you want more? But I see like so many different people have watched the show, have takes about the show. Like, what is it? Is it the girls? Is it the storyline? Is it the theme? What has us so enchanted?
Oh my goodness. I think there are a number of things. The very first thing that comes to mind is why are we enchanted in general with reality TV shows? And I feel like it's because it's very explicit and open about the drama and the messiness of life. And I always joke, like, I love watching reality TV because it makes me feel better about my life because it doesn't feel as messy compared to what's on screen, right? And we know a lot of that's manufactured and scripted, but I feel like there's part of that. I feel like what Secret Lives of Mormon Wives did was capitalize on an already engaged group of viewers. And that's the thing with influencers is we feel like we know the people we follow because they show us, quote, a day in the life or like my 5 to 9 before my 9 to 5, right? Like, like we feel intimacy, manufactured intimacy, false intimacy, but we feel a connection, like we are a part of their lives. And it made me think of, or this question is making me think of Ruby Franke, and that whole like original family mom vlogger who is, now in prison for child abuse. But like the way that she displayed her life with such vulnerability, so many people were connected to her and felt like they were a quote part of the family, which of course isn't accurate, but we feel that. And so they, before the TV show, were influencers, right? So they had, I don't even know, tens of hundreds of thousands of followers, millions even, of people who were already engaged and invested in their life. So to get more content, to see that to an even greater extent, to see the interaction even more behind the scenes is definitely, I think, something that has really, something they've done well is they capitalized on an existing audience, right, for this show.
Yeah.
But I feel like the show itself, right, those things aside, it's messy, it's trauma filled. Clearly, it's manufactured and scripted in a lot of ways that I feel like I even had this conversation with a friend, like this show and other Hulu compared to like Bravo reality TV shows. And it feels like Hulu's are just so much more scripted than Bravo's are. And I don't know if because Bravo's been in the game forever and like made reality TV what it is or what, but yeah, it feels very
They said
different.
This is our house.
Like this is, yeah, really. But I feel like it deals with content that I think a lot of people are interested in, right? Like the lives of these women, the social media scandal, of course, that catalyzed a lot of this, the swinger scandal, but then also like they talk very honestly about sex and family and relationships. And there's a lot of really, I think, and maybe this is like my bias as a sociologist of religion, like I am fascinated by LDS and the FLDS. And I think a lot of people, even that don't study this or don't have it as their job, are really interested in this kind of like fundamentalist religious space, especially if you haven't experienced it. Like, how does that even work, right? So there's a lot of really interesting themes that I think really people are captivated by, that draw people towards the show.
And unfortunately, the theme song,
Mm.
every time it
The theme
comes on,
song is catchy as
I'm like,
fuck.
it
Yes.
slaps. I'm
It
dancing. It's a
slaps
bop.
so much. I've seen
Like,
so many reels of people like every time that comes on, just yeah.
I like, okay, so you know how when a show starts, after a few seconds, it gives you the option to skip, like skip intro, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
was starting to get self-conscious, like, oh no, Anthony's gonna notice I'm not skipping the intro because I want to listen to the song. He's gonna judge me.
Oh my gosh. What do you think? What do you think gravitates people towards the show? Why do you think it is what it is?
I mean, people love mess. The
Mm-hmm.
people yearn for drama. I think you're totally right of like we develop such parasocial relationships with
Mm-hmm.
the content we consume. Like we are nothing but consumers. Like
Yeah.
um we get sucked in. You know, I while you were talking, I was thinking about the nature of parasocial relationships and how we all sort of get them. Like there is an account my mom follows either on Facebook or Instagram of a woman and her husband talking about their fertility issues. And when I call to just like talk with my mom, she'll be like, "Oh," and she'll tell me about their updates as if they are her friends,
The
right?
family member,
Yeah.
friends.
And
Yeah. Wow.
it takes me several minutes to be like, "Oh, she's not talking about someone in our extended family. She's talking about these people she sees online." And in my head, I want to be like judgmental of that, right? But I did
Yeah.
the same exact shit with sailing with Phoenix. Have you heard of this?
Uh-uh.
Okay. So this is like an Oregon man got a very like severe health diagnosis that would
Okay.
shape his quality of life. He liquidated his 401k and like spent a year prepping, bought a sailboat, quit his job, and sailed from
Oh,
Oregon to
yeah.
Hawaii. Okay.
Okay.
And I was just obsessed. Every day I'm checking in. Every day I'm going to like do the tracker, like how many miles has he traveled today? I'm
Oh
watching
my
the updates.
gosh.
Anthony gets home and I'm like, look, Oliver and Phoenix are, look how close they're getting, right? And it's like,
Yep.
why am I mesmerized? Why am I
Mhm.
captivated? And like,
Yeah.
it's not messy drama, but it's like people who live different lives than us, but it's still relatable in some way. So like with
Yeah.
the sailing with Phoenix, my point of connection was like, what must it be like to just like follow your dream? Right. And
Yeah.
I'm just like rooting him on, like, that's so great. With Mom Talk and Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, my point of connection is I also grew up in a really conservative religious space. And
Yeah.
although my life looks really different now, I understand what it was like to feel that way. And like,
Mhm.
I didn't throw parties or have like fabulous hair extensions, but I can see a little bit of like, okay, I get where they're coming from or why they might feel that way. And I love mess. I love it.
Yep. Yep.
This leads us all to our big question. But is it feminist? Is Mom Talk at the vanguard of empowering religious women to be feminists, to claim their feminist identities? Are they the missing link between religion and feminism? Your face, oh my God.
I think they are, which
Mm,
is concerning.
which is concerning.
I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of feminists that only cosplays feminism. And I think this is one of those. And fundamentally, in the core definition of feminism, it is absolutely not feminist.
I think I have to agree with you. I think often of the Onion headline that says something to the effect of local woman turns off her feminism to enjoy TV show for 1 hour. And I think about that headline quite often.
Hmm. Yeah.
You look disgusted with me.
No, I think I'm discussed with myself. Like how often it's so true. Oh yeah, it's certainly not the missing bridge. I think, but I always feel like I position myself from where they're coming from. And I think there's a lot of true belief that they are. And in some ways they are pushing boundaries. But where they're pushing towards is not a place of empowerment. It's not a place of feminism. It's not a place of intersectional feminism, my form of what I believe feminism truly to be, certainly not, right? So, but I think that they believe that they're doing work in that space. And perhaps it's a hinge point, but it's certainly not the bridge. You know, it might make people think differently that are coming from truly fundamentalist spaces, but it's not moving the needle.
Yeah. What do you think it would take for them to get there?
Gosh, that's such a tough question. I mean, I think it comes back to, I think there needs to be a lot more honesty around money, around capitalism being the root of this rather than empowering women. And capitalism certainly can be an avenue for feminism in a lot of ways, but it looks like the girl boss feminism, right? The true feminism, I go back to the Combahee River Collective, like it has to be radically anti-capitalist. It has to be intersectional and challenging white supremacy and challenging heteronormativity and challenging cisgender norms, right? Like, and there are, it feels like the conversation around feminism, if we can even call it that in this show, is so unidimensional. It is only about cisgender, heterosexual white women that are of upper middle to upper class, right? And so to truly, I think, get to feminism, it needs to cross a lot more lines of conversation. And it needs to truly, I think, challenge those systems rather than what it's doing is reinforcing them. To say that motherhood is beyond anything temporal, right? Is beyond anything like is the ultimate, right? And then also to simultaneously have a friend deal with infertility and motherhood may never be a thing for her. So what does that mean for her life, right? What does it mean to have a MomTok without a mom? Someone who's actually a mom, right? Or can ever be a biological mom, right? And I just think there are so many ways that it falls short. But to put it into context, I don't think they're in a context to truly be feminist, right? Like the reinforcement of whiteness by the LDS, right? The reinforcement of capitalism by these sorts of things that it would need to address to be truly feminist aren't, I think, a place naturally where they would fall anyway.
Yeah. I feel like we could keep talking for literally hours about this. Tess, thank you so much for joining me today. I am so glad that I got to hear your wisdom on this. There were so many times where I was like, oh, fire emoji,
Oh,
but I didn't want to interrupt you.
Thank you for having me. It was a great conversation to have. You know, I would have been watching this content anyway. So to get to talk about it, to get to reflect on it, analyze it was such a joy.
100%.